Central Expressions. Your voice, your culture.
Start saving for your golden years with a Sagicor Lifestyle Approved Retirement Scheme. The time by Sagicor Life is
7 o'clock. CVM News at 7 Headlines Thursday. Brought to you by Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy. Coming up in the news at 7, lawyers describe DPP's contentious tenure extension as admirable. Yova saga continues. U.S. school under scrutiny. Guardian speaks up. Fake news. Police issue warning amid fake crime incident.
Also in the news, former NCB employee sentenced to 2 years in prison for fraud. In business news, JBDC hops onto data protection train. And in sports, Coach Haldrimson reflects on Jamaica's elimination from Copa America. From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. I'm Stephen McHugh.
And I'm Carolyn Brown. It's Thursday, June 27, 2024. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, we begin with this development. Former National Commercial Bank employee Khadene Thomas was sentenced to 2 years in prison on Thursday in the St. Anne Parish Court.
Thomas pleaded guilty in February to 3 counts of larceny as a servant and 31 counts of uttering forged documents for fleecing $74.5 million from 3 customers. Her attorney, Matthew Hyatt, gave an update to our news team.
In the St. Anne Parish Court today, where she was sentenced to 24 months at hard labor for the offenses of uttering forged documents, and for larceny as a servant, she was sentenced to 12 months imprisonment at hard labor, and the sentences are to run concurrently. The judge gave in her discretion a 30% discount, taking into consideration the good social inquiry report, that she has no previous convictions, and that there is the element of restitution that is to be made, and partial restitution also has been made. And so while she is disappointed that she has received a custodial sentence, she is also remorseful of her actions.
And here in the corporate area, the Court of Appeal hearing to determine if Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn will remain in office continued today. Her attorney described the government's move to extend her tenure by adjusting the retirement age as admirable. However, the unanswered question is whether the change was enacted for an improper purpose. Natalia Clarke was back in court.
Admirable is how Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn's lawyer is describing last year's decision by the government to amend the Constitution, raising the retirement age of the DPP and Auditor General to 65. King's Counsel Douglas Lays asserts that this move aligns the retirement age of the DPP with that of most public officers. However, King's Counsel Michael Hilton argues the sole purpose of the amendment was to extend Llewellyn's tenure after holding the position since 2008. Representing the opposition People's National Party, Hilton is determined to prove that the amendments were made with an improper motive. On Thursday, he presented his case to the Court of Appeal, meticulously detailing the sequence of events leading up to the constitutional change. Hilton emphasized that in February 2023, Llewellyn requested a second tenure extension through the Public Service Commission, a request that was denied by Prime Minister Andrew Holness based on legal advice. With Llewellyn's tenure set to end in September 2023, Hilton argued that the impending vacancy was evident. However, despite this, he says no effort was made to advertise the post or identify a successor. Instead, a bill was swiftly introduced to Parliament on July 25. Referencing an affidavit from then-acting leader of opposition business Mikhail Phillips, Hilton stated that the opposition was blindsided by the bill and had no opportunity to review it thoroughly before it was tabled and passed. He pointed out that 3 days later in the Senate, the opposition raised concerns and proposed an amendment for the bill to take effect on January 1, 2024, which would have prevented Llewellyn from benefiting from the increased retirement age. This amendment was rejected, and the government, leveraging its majority, sent the bill to the Governor General for assent. Hilton contended that the timeline clearly indicates that the law was amended solely to benefit the incumbent DPP, which he deems unconstitutional. He argued that the how, when, and why to pass the bill breached the separation of powers, compromising the independence of the DPP's office. King's Counsel Ransford Bryan, representing the government, however, says such arguments draw the court into political controversy and maintains the changes were lawful. He argued that the fact that an incumbent benefits from the legislation does not inherently indicate an improper purpose. The Court of Appeal is set to wrap up the hearing on Friday. The three-judge panel's decision could have significant implications for the government and the perception of independence of the DPP's office. Natalia Clarke, CVM News.
The police in the St. Andrews South Division have issued a warning to persons bent on spreading fake news concerning crime. The charge comes after news surfaced on social media Thursday suggesting 7 people were shot, 1 fatally off Maxfield Avenue. The commanding officer shot down the claims as fake news. Nika Lewis reports.
When news surfaced Thursday of another harrowing incident in which it was alleged 7 people were shot and a female fatally wounded, it spread just as quickly as the accompanying fear or excitement. But subsequent checks with the police soon found the claims were false.
We have had no multiple casualty incident in the for more than almost a month, or should I say at least. Not in Nelson Road, of course. We had one incident of a shooting or murder last night of a female there. She was the only victim, the only one shot and injured in that incident.
Commanding Officer for the St. Andrews South Police Division, Superintendent Damian Manderson, says there is need for Jamaicans to act responsibly with information, especially when it concerns national security.
But people ought to recognize that they are playing with people's life, they are playing with people's livelihood, and they are doing things not just that affect the persons in the local, but they are doing things to affect national security, they are doing things to affect the national image. And this is something that we ought to take stock of, and not everything that we hear or that is gossip is gospel, and people ought to be responsible conveyors of information, and that's what it boils down to. People ought to be responsible, appreciating that treating with people's life.
It's why the officer is adamant that people take into consideration their actions when spreading fake news, insisting those who peddle tales should desist from doing so.
And they are not to treat it trivially, to merely be passing on these things that are unverified fact information. You know, they ought to be responsible conveyors, and it takes all of us to do that.
Nika Lewis, CVM News.
And the CVM News follow-up now about an American teen in Jamaica being sought by the Iowa court. More information has come to light, this time from the legal guardian who is still on the island, hoping to return the child to the U.S. Our reporter is Adrian Williams.
The youth of Vision Academy Yova remains on the radar as there are sexual assault and labor trafficking allegations made out against them. Still in the island is the newest legal guardian who will remain anonymous for safety reasons. She says she's been having a repulsive experience with Yova director Noel Reed, who allegedly laughed jeeringly at the court order to retrieve the teen. The guardian says she called the St. Mary police but then waited in vain.
We ended up calling the police at that time. And unfortunately, we waited for over an hour and nobody came. We called the St. Mary's Police and nobody came. We were having contact with lots of entities back in Iowa, including our Child Protective Unit there.
The legal guardian is anxious to know the outcome.
I'm very much in the dark, even though I'm the one with the guardianship. I know that back in Iowa, they're working their hardest to try to bring some closure and get her into my care so that I can bring her back, so that they can make sure she's okay, that we can have her examined and talking with therapists and doing all those things just to see what her truth and her story is. But I'm just not getting any support here on the Jamaican side.
In a twist of events, the previous guardian who had made the decision to send the teen girl away to Yova is also on the island to meet with the institution and the child. It is alleged that this guardian interrupted the process of the new legal guardian by taking the teen away from the US unknowingly to Yova. Though this is not a battle of the guardians, the child's current legal guardian is wondering why the Iowa court order is being ignored, adding she has extended her stay by 10 days to facilitate what was originally a 24-hour trip.
I just can't keep extending it with no end in sight, and I haven't gotten any confirmation that anybody's going to do anything directly, like that it's really going to happen. And so I can't just continue to stay in Jamaica indefinitely, spending money and not being present at home for my own children.
U.S. children's rights attorney Dawn Post, in advocating for the teen's release, says she's puzzled what seems to be the hindrance in this case.
The existence of this facility and the issues and the concerns have risen to very high levels of government here in the United States, which makes it even more puzzling to me that there would be such resistance in cooperating and returning American citizens to this country.
The guardian is appealing to the local authorities to communicate and act accordingly so the teen can be in a safe environment.
It's not about who she's with when she gets home. It's about just making sure that she's okay and getting her home where we can have her have the opportunity to share her story and talk with the appropriate people and find out what has happened or not happened. I'm not trying to be up against anybody. I just want to take this young lady home where I know she's safe.
U.S. Attorney representing Yova, Ashley Martin, has declined calls and has not responded to other correspondence since the allegations have been made. Adrian Williams for CVM News.
And we'll have more CVM News at 7 for you right after this. CVM News at 7, Headlines Thursday, brought to you by Guardian Life. Live secure, live easy.
Hey, how was school?
It was really good, but I'm really hungry. Can we get some juicy pasta?
Sure we can. I never see a boil up patty like you.
Hey son, you good?
No, Dad, I'm starving. Can we get some juicy patties?
Celebrating over 40 years of everyday moments.
Did you know that many of my schoolmates have an unhealthy diet, especially at school, and now 23% of them are overweight and or obese? And so one less sugary drink at my school may mean one friend less,
or 2 or 3,
at risk of cavities or diabetes. And if we're served less foods high in saturated fats, sugar and sodium, it may reduce our risk from obesity, heart disease and high blood pressure.
The solution is simple, right? Act now.
Let's get unhealthy foods and beverages out of our schools.
A message from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and partners.
Jamaica's favorite drama, Your Guilty Pleasure.
Listen to me, is it, Reverend Martin? I don't want you to gamble with my life or the lives of our children.
Royal Palm Estate is on CVM every Tuesday and Sunday at 9 p.m.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Though the National Identification System NIDS may lessen the workload for justices of the peace, it will also prove to make their services easier to access. While speaking at a JP sensitization session on Thursday, Minister of Justice Delroy Chuck urged justices to enroll in NIDS so they can be more easily identified.
Jamaicans will now have easier access to Justice of the Peace services. Minister of Justice Delroy Chuck says through the National Identification System NIDS, JPs will be easily identified nationally.
So on the national ID, if you're a JP, up to date, registered, and everything, then the Custos and his office will approve that you're a JP, and therefore JP will be on the card. So you won't need a separate JP identification. The national ID will show you as a JP.
Chuck, in speaking at a Justice of the Peace sensitization session on Thursday, sought to quash hesitations to NIDS, claiming the government has no malicious intent.
There are various reasons why people say you must register. Mark of the beast. Government shouldn't get my private information. Government want to interfere with what we're doing. There's no ulterior motive for the National Identification System. It's a straightforward system for us or for the government to serve you better. Without proper data as to people in our island, it's not easy for the government or anyone to serve you.
He maintains justice is accessible to every Jamaican through the Justices of the Peace and is continuing to do work to promote justice services. Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
The Minister with responsibility for water, Senator Matthew Samuda, has chastised the opposition, People's National Party, for what he considers the disastrous handling of the water portfolio in their time. Here's more from our reporter, Britannia Whittle.
It's no secret that many areas in Jamaica have been plagued by water woes for years. In recent times, Minister without portfolio for water, Senator Matthew Samuda, spoke about non-revenue water, NRW, also known as water unaccounted for due to leaking pipes, faulty infrastructure, or theft. The water minister took it a step further during his address to a sea of green at the Jamaica Labour Party's Area 1 Council meeting in West Kingston on Tuesday. He declared that the People's National Party, PNP, was terrible at handling the country's water troubles.
The policy of the PNP was disaster where water is concerned. It's the only political party on planet Earth run pipes and don't connect them. So when them did widen Washington Boulevard, them run pipe and don't connect the pipe. And then have the nerve today to make noise about water.
He adds that the PNP has constructed infrastructure without executing the necessary steps for the country's water needs.
If you go through the length and breadth of this country, you look at some of the highways they built, it gets worse. Imagine building a new road and don't run no pipe. So either them don't connect the pipe, or them don't run no pipe, and then them have the nerve to ask where is the water. Now Labour rights are West Kingston. Tell me if I'm not original them.
The water minister says the World Bank has estimated that it will cost billions to fix Jamaica's water problems.
To fix water and sewage in Jamaica, the World Bank estimates is about $5 billion. To fix water and sewage in Kingston and St. Andrew is about $1 billion.
The minister stressed that the JLP-led government is serious about fixing the country's water and sewage issues. In an attempt to make his point clear, he says he's willing to put his head on a block if the West Kingston sewage issue is not resolved by 2025. Britannia Whittle, CVM News.
More trucks have been procured for the National Solid Waste Management Authority, ranging from tipper trucks to cranes. This affording the agency the opportunity to ramp up its local garbage collection efforts. As Trisha Gay Kelly reports, the Prime Minister is promising even more trucks for the near future.
Jamaicans have always complained of overflowing garbage disposals and pungent odor, but that is all expected to change soon with new trucks gifted to the National Solid Waste Management Authority NSWMA. On Tuesday, the agency received 50 modern trucks expected to improve the agency's performance.
Recent years, under the able guidance of the board led by outgoing chair Mr. Dennis Strong, and the management of the authority, it has transformed itself and improved on corporate governance in such a way that it now represents the gold standard in public bodies management in Jamaica.
He has promised that the agency will now strengthen its efforts to work more efficiently, a promise that is also held by Minister of Local Government and Rural Development Desmond McKenzie, who says the NSWMA will be carrying out a special operation soon.
The National Solid Waste Management Authority will now move expeditiously to bring law and order to our roads and our sidewalks. We are going to be moving them. We're giving notice. They have started already.
The gifts from the government were purchased using the country's very own resources. That's the word from Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who said more trucks will be handed over at the right time.
This new addition of equipment, as you can see, will increase the service quality and capability of the NSWMA. So we can now tackle bulky waste. We can now go into communities that previously we could not access because of the size of the roadways. We can now transport heavier loads and bulkier waste because of the capabilities of the tipper trucks.
He promised that as the economy grows, so too will the number of trucks for the agency. Trisha Gay Kelly, CVM News.
Now, after years of discomfort due to restricted space and heat, the Three Hills Primary School was gifted a new school canteen. The upgraded facility was unveiled and handed over on Wednesday. Here's Courtney Lewis with more.
It was all smiles at the Three Hills Primary School in St. Mary as the school unveiled a new canteen. Principal Celine Harris says the previous canteen, built in the 1940s, although very useful, was in dire need of a renovation.
And so it has been there and serving a good purpose for many years. But one day somebody came and realized that it was inadequate and that we could use a little bit more space. And the cook that was in the room began to cry for heat and space. So he decided that he was going to protest, that he's not cooking if the space don't increase. And so we decided to do something about this situation.
The new canteen was donated by US-based Greater Three Hills Community Development Organization. Edna Hines-Miles, representing the organization, says as a past student and a teacher, the upgrade is a great addition to the school and community.
I had a little goosebump when I saw it. I thought I was in a restaurant kitchen. It's so beautiful, it's clean, it's spacious, the stoves are so great, everything looks so nice, so different, well needed.
The canteen, which was once described as a 2x4 cell, outfitted with new facilities, will now serve hundreds of students and staff in years to come. Courtney Lewis for CVM News.
And
it was all smiles at...
We will continue with our business segment right after this.
surprise June end of month blowout. 6 days of non-stop saving, June 24 to 29. Up to 20% off on toilets, slat wall, BH paints and doors. And amazing deals on everything else.
You can't lose at New Budget.
Come see us now at New Budget Supplies, 195 Hagley Park Road.
May I go down there right now?
Call us today, 9234560. Don't miss out on these unbelievable savings.
You can't lose with New Budget.
Did you know that many of my schoolmates have an unhealthy diet, especially at school? And now 23% of them are overweight and or obese? And so one less sugary drink at my school may mean one friend less,
or 2 or 3,
at risk of cavities or diabetes. And if we're served less foods high in saturated fats, sugar and sodium, it may reduce our risk from obesity, heart disease and high blood pressure.